Greetings, guys, gals, non-binary pals, and welcome back to another video. This is the first, proper video I have sat down to film in 3 months, and I'm way more nervous than I should be about it. I feel so out of touch, so out of practice. I need to blah, blah, blah. Good to be back. It's weird to be back. I'm going to try and mix things up a little now that I have more time. Now that I am back, I want to do more longer form videos. I want to do less Reddit style videos because I now have more time to do that, and I hope that you're all here for that and are here for an upgrade on my channel. Okay, I'm gonna upgrade my channel a little bit. Don't forget to subscribe to see the channel level up, because that is the goal by the end of the year, to level up the channel. Anyway, I didn't take my Ritalin today. I haven't taken my Ritalin for 3 months, so I'm not quite sure how the side effects are gonna hit me, but I'll take them soon. Anyways, I'm gonna actually start the video now. Today, we're gonna talk about some trans terfs, or maybe not even terfs. I wouldn't really call half of them feminists, to be honest, but terf and transphobe have kind of gotten crossed up a little bit. A lot of them aren't really feminists, because if you're not including trans people, you're not a feminist, but they barely even care about cis women at this point. So it's all a big bit of a mixing pot where I don't know what goes on, but there are a lot of trans people who have beliefs that go against their own self-interest, just because they want to be liked by bigoted cis people, and it benefits them to be on the side of transphobes, because if you are the token trans person, you feel safer and more secure, even if those people will turn around and stab you in the back at the drop of a hat. But we're gonna get into that soon. I made a video about conservative queers way back when, I think in February, and there was a trans woman at the end of the video, and I was like, I'm gonna make a video about this woman in particular because she has a YouTube channel and I feel like we need to talk about it. And I never did. And I just remembered her a few days ago and decided that now would be the time to go and talk about her. But unfortunately, she doesn't have any videos on her YouTube channel anymore. She's deleted them. And instead she just makes TikToks. So I've also included some videos from the wonderful Blair White and Caitlyn Jenner, because those are two big names who are trans women who are very conservative and openly Republican Trump supporters, and I don't get it. And they say some stuff and I want to talk about it. So without further ado, let's have a look at these 3 women who say the darndest of things.
I'm a trans athlete, and I do not understand people arguing that trans women are not good enough or strong enough to compete with men. That's my entire goal in competing with men the next upcoming years in professional skiing events. But why don't older men or just guys that aren't good enough compete with women? They're not good enough to compete in the men's division. It doesn't allow them to then go compete with women. Just because I appear socially as a woman doesn't give me any more rights than some old dude or some guy that's just not good enough to compete with men to go play against women. Women's sports and women's spaces were created for that reason alone, for the sanctity of females being able to measure their abilities against other females.
She was floundering so bad at the end there. It sounds like she is truly just making these videos to get the approval of transphobes. She knows what they want to hear, so she says it, because so much of that it felt so baseless. You know what I mean? She kind of proved our point there, being some men aren't good enough to compete against men, and you don't think they should compete against women. It's okay, so what we're saying here is that gender doesn't necessarily make you good at something, right? Some women can beat some men, and some men can beat some women. This is true. Older men are not going to be able to compete with younger men. A professional is not going to be able to compete with an amateur. That doesn't matter about gender. And when it comes to sports, especially skiing, a lot of it is to do with weight, because that's what powers you forwards. So then a big, buff, heavy man is going to perform better than like a stick thin man who has very little muscle mass. You know what I mean? So in that case, sure, like men are on average heavier than women are. So they should be competing with other men because they're heavier than women. But then shouldn't you do it by weight class? Would that not be more fair? If you do it by the class of skill rather than by gender, I think that seems like a more fair way to do it. You know, like, if you're going into something where the only benefit someone has is just that they weigh more than someone else, then the smallest man is at more of a disadvantage than, like, the largest woman would be. You know what I mean? Like, you should separate them by the thing that is actually making them different rather than by gender, which doesn't actually affect skill or performance. It impacts things in a different way. You know what I mean? I feel like you understand that, but you just want the brownie points from people who don't give a shit about you. You know? And like, you're here like, I want to compete against men because I am strong enough to compete against men. So exactly, some women are strong enough to compete against men. So true. As you just said, some women are indeed strong enough to compete against men. Some of them are going to be trans women. Some of them are going to be cis women. And not all men are good enough to compete against men either. So like, you know, there are ways to make this more fair. And it's not to separate them by gender. And it's not to say trans women can't compete with other women.
In case you haven't been following the story as closely as I was, Hailey Davidson, the transgender golfer, did not make the final cut in order to receive an LPGA Tour card. Now, that in of itself is definitely a win for female golfers all around the world and this LPGA qualifying school, but that journey is not over. Despite 275 plus strongly worded emails from female golfers in that qualifying school, the LPGA still has not revised their gender guidelines to show that only females can compete in the LPGA. So that leaves the door open for Hailey to try again next year, or another trans golfer to try again next year. And just because Hailey wasn't good enough does not mean that somehow men can fairly compete against women in sports. There are a number of different sports that women can beat me at daily. It doesn't make it fair for men to compete against women in sports. I'll say that again. Men should not compete against women in sports. It's not fair. Hang out and stay tuned for more from an educated, clear-thinking trans woman.
I fucking love proving that point, like being like, women can beat me in a number of sports every day, but that doesn't make it fair that women should compete against men. I think it does, though. But I think it kind of does, though. I think that we should be just competing based on skill level, not on gender. That makes the most amount of sense to me. Some women are beating some men, like, overall. And, like, vice versa, you know what I mean? Like, you separate it by skill level, by whatever is the thing that gives you the advantage. Whether that be, like, muscle mass, or, like, height, or weight, whatever. Like, separate them into classes that actually make sense. And I'm sorry, a bunch of things wrong with this. Golf. You're complaining about a trans person playing golf because it's unfair to have a man competing against women in golf. What skill difference? Like, what could you possibly say that makes me believe that golf should be a gendered sport? What advantage does a man have in golf? I will fucking wait for your answer because I cannot think of it. Can't think of a single maybe I don't know shit about golf, but as far as I'm aware, it's all about like skill and mainly about like mental skill rather than like a physical skill. You know what I mean? Like I don't feel like there's much advantage. This is like when people were complaining about chess. Because chess is gendered and they're like, you can't let trans people play chess. It's like, it's fucking chess, bro. What are you fucking talking about? What physical advantage do these people have? I don't understand what you're getting at. Especially when you go into like, sure, she didn't qualify. She wasn't good enough to beat the other woman, but it doesn't make it fair. I think that kind of proves that it is fair. There was no advantage. You literally just proved there was no advantage. They're on equal fucking playing fields here, bro. Like, what are you trying to prove here? What point are you coming to? It's a win for female golfers everywhere. How? Because a trans woman didn't qualify? Like, that just shows they were kicking up a fuss for nothing. And also, it's fucking golf. Like, I get being upset not with a trans woman, because a trans woman is a woman, but in general, I would get being upset if they were like non-gendered and like each country or city or whatever could only put forward 10 people, and since there was no gender disparity, they put forward 10 men or like 8 men. Just have it like that it's like a co-ed sport or whatever, and you have to have like an even number, or it has to be at least like 75% women or whatever. You know what I mean? 75% women. I'm gonna stick with that actually. Like have it so it has to be like half. That would be the best way to do it. And then also you can include non-binary people as well and not have to like put them in a gender box that they don't identify with. I just think that that's the better way to do it. Like, sure, some of the time it's going to be mostly one gender, but not necessarily all. Like, I just feel like there are better ways to do this. And I just think that you're being silly and ridiculous and you don't even believe half of what you're saying. You just want the approval of bigots. So, you know.
I know nothing about what it means to be a woman, and despite me being trans and a trans identifying person, I'm okay with that. And I absolutely hate seeing trans identifying males, seeing people who claim to know so much about the gender that they're not. Like, speaking from experience, yeah, I took steps to look like and appear as a woman in society. But when it comes to womanhood and girlhood, I know nothing. And I never will. And that's okay. Like, whatever goes on in a woman's head and a woman's body and all of that, like, that is all just a complete anomaly to me. And it always will be. I mean, I appreciate it. I think it's beautiful, but I'll know nothing about it. And I'm okay with that.
I think it's so weird to generalize and to also like invalidate yourself to this degree. Like, you do know about womanhood because you are a woman and you identify as a woman and you live life as a woman. If you are perceived socially as a woman, you know about womanhood. You like experience the same thing socially that cis women experience. You experience the misogyny. You experience the way people look at you. Like, you experience the same things. And every woman experiences womanhood differently. We are all different. Being like, I will never understand what goes on in a woman's head or a woman's body. It's like, well, we're all different. Cis women, trans women, whatever. Like, we all have different bodies and different minds, and they all function in a different way. Like, sure, you'll never experience like menstruation, but some cis women don't experience that either. You know, it's like a weird generalization to be like, I'll never know what goes on in women's heads because all cis women have the exact same thoughts in the exact same body. They all have the same experiences. Like, no, we're all individuals. We all think differently. We all experience life differently. We all feel differently. Our bodies all do different things. We all have a different experience in what our womanhood is. And you are a woman and you do understand womanhood because your womanhood is your womanhood and how you experience that. And even in terms of like how our brains work or whatever, like a trans woman's brain makeup and pattern is more similar to a cis woman's than it is to a cis man's. Like, you understand being a woman on a biological level more than you do being a man, as well as on a social level. Like, stop invalidating your own gender just because you think it's going to get you brownie points. You are a woman. Like, you can say, you know, if you don't want to identify as a woman, that's fine. If you want to call yourself a what? No, what did you say? A female identifying trans male it's a mouthful. But if you prefer to be called that over woman, I mean, that's your prerogative, I guess, but like, you don't have to invalidate yourself. Like, you can just accept that you are a woman and you experience womanhood in your own way. It's going to be different to how I experience womanhood. Sure, but how I experience womanhood is also different to how a different cis person experiences womanhood. We all have our own lives. We are all individuals. Stop trying to just like please people who don't give a fuck about whether you live or die and want to take your rights away. You know? Like, they're not your people. They're not looking out for you. They will cut you down the second they have the chance.
I am not a woman. Magically, I'm still here, though. Like, I can be a trans woman and understand that I'm not a woman, and it doesn't affect my identity. I can understand that I'm an adult human male. You can call me a man. You can call me a trans woman. You can, use whatever pronouns you see fit to interact with me, it doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect how I see myself or how my family sees me or my friends see me or fellow athletes see me. So I can compete in the men's division and understand that it's not a blow to myself and who I am. Like, I don't understand why trans women and athletes in particular think that they need to compete in the women's category in order to feel validated. You don't, sister. Like, you can be yourself and compete with other males and be just fine.
Okay, good for you. I'm glad that it is hard for people to get you down. Like, I'm glad that, you know, people can be assholes to you and it doesn't affect you and you don't feel invalidated by it and you feel so confident and strong in yourself that shit doesn't get you down. Good for you. However, that's not how it works for a lot of people. You know, like, a lot of people are going to be hurt by being misgendered. A lot of people are going to feel attacked and like invalidated and question their place in society. And that is completely valid. You don't have to relate to that. You don't have to experience that. You just have to understand that we all are affected by different things differently. We all have our own reasons why things affect us in different ways. We all have different like trauma that affects the way we respond to things and affects the way we react to things being said and done to us. And even still, like, you know, if you are struggling with figuring out who you are and you finally figure that out and feel confident in that and someone comes in and tells you that you're wrong, that's gonna fucking suck. And I honestly doubt that it doesn't hurt you. Like, you can sit here all you like and say, you can call me a man as much as you want. You can call me he, him as much as you want. I doubt that it doesn't hurt. Like, if it doesn't, that's impressive. You've got very thick skin that you've worked an incredibly long time trying to build up just so you can kiss the butts of people who hate you. But a lot of people, they don't want to do that. They want to just exist as themselves and be accepted by society as themselves and treated as themselves. And it's kind of shit when people come in and don't respect that. Even if it doesn't invalidate you in your gender or your identity, it still fucking sucks having someone disrespect you. You know? It's okay to be upset by someone disrespecting you, because it's incredibly easy for someone to respect your identity and respect who you are as a person. Like, that's not a difficult thing to do. It's actually very, very easy to respect people. I think, like, being like, why can't you just compete with the other males? It's because they're not men. I think the solution to all of this is to just eliminate separating things by gender and separating it instead by the things that give you advantages and disadvantages, etc. Like, I don't know, man. Maybe that's just me.
When did this idea of displaying your pronouns literally everywhere start? Because when I began my transition, it wasn't a thing. In high school, if you look like a boy, you were he. And if you look like a girl, you were she. And now you see it everywhere on social media platforms, on email signatures. I see it out in public on people's lapels, she, her, or they, them. What is this madness? Like, we don't need other people to tell our brains how we perceive individuals. And this continued delusion of what is a woman and what is a man are only more attempts to take over spaces, have forced inclusion everywhere. This is not what we've ever done, what we've ever wanted. This is a small minority of individuals that are speaking for a majority and forcing that idea and mindset on people. Like, you're never going to confuse my brain. If I see somebody walking around that looks like a man, I'm going to call that person a man and he and him. It doesn't matter what they're displaying on their jacket. It's not going to confuse my brain. And I know it won't confuse yours. Hang out and stay tuned for more from an educated, clear-thinking trans woman.
I love being like, it was never done before, so why is it done now? Kids say that about literally everything. Did you know that things always have a start? Like, things always start somewhere. They didn't used to be the internet either. TikTok has only really been around for a few years, and yet here you are. This wasn't around when I was in high school. We had Musical.ly, but we didn't have TikTok when I was in high school. So, like, you couldn't post videos on Instagram when I was in high school, and now there's Reels. Does that mean that, you know, we have to stop that? No, because things always start somewhere. And just because they start and are new doesn't make them bad. And this whole thing with pronouns started because we do have more online spaces, and it's annoying to be misgendered online. You know what I mean? Like, especially if people don't have pictures online. You can't even look at them and go, you look like a boy, you look like a girl. Not that that's even an appropriate way to choose someone's gender, but you can't even do that online. So it's all based on assumption. It's all based on, like, you don't know how to talk about individuals online. Having pronouns there means that you know how to have a conversation with and about them, and it's much easier to do. And it did start though as a way of like, yeah, trans people did it so you would appropriately gender them, and cis people started doing it in allyship so that trans people weren't targeted. But it's also just incredibly convenient. It's just genuinely convenient online to do. Like, whether you're cis or trans, it's just helpful. And then wearing them on your lapel or whatever, it's like some people are just proud of their identity, and it's also just easier. You know what I mean? And this also applies for cis people. There are mask presenting cis women and like femme presenting cis men that will be misgendered. Like you said, you're like, in high school, if you look like a boy, you were a he. If you look like a girl, you were a she. Would you call like a mask lesbian he at high school? Because where I'm from, that was bullying, you know? You're like bullying someone for their presentation. I feel like you aren't actually gonna do that. You are just invalidating people for the sake of it. And I just don't think it's difficult to call people by the things they want to be called by. Especially if they're wearing it like right in front of you and you can see it. It like takes effort to disregard that. And being like, if you look like a boy, I'm going to call you a boy. If you look like a girl, I'm going to call you a girl. Doesn't even apply to half the audience that you were trying to appeal to. Because as soon as they find out someone is trans, they could be the most masculine of men ever. They could be buff as fuck with like a full beard, and you wouldn't have a clue. You wouldn't have a clue that they were trans. And they would be he, himing him the whole time, and then they'd find out he was trans, and suddenly they would switch to she, her just because they want to be assholes. And they have to lie to themselves and confuse themselves and delude themselves into thinking that this is a woman and they look like a woman when they don't. And that's the audience you're trying to appeal to. You won't confuse my brain. No, but people are willingly trying to confuse their brains to deliberately misgender trans people. And they're misgendering you too. A lot of them actually probably aren't, because they want to be on your good side and use you as a token trans and like, see, I'll respect you if you are smart and clever and you hate other trans people. It's like, fuck off, man. You're doing all of this just for your best interest and pretending that you actually care about people. You don't care about anyone but yourself. You just want bigoted people to look to you and rally behind you because it makes you feel better. You have a superiority complex that you have to fuel, and it's exhausting and it's gross. Think about other trans people for a minute, okay? Just like be a decent person and put on your fucking empathy hat and your thinking hat and just like take a minute to reflect on why the fuck you're throwing other trans people under the bus when you have no need to do that. Who are you trying to impress and why are you trying to impress them? And now we move into some videos by good old dear Blair White. I actually don't think I've ever spoken about Blair White on this channel before. I see her all the time, but I actually don't know if she's ever come up in a video. Maybe like once or twice, but that's pretty astounding. So here we are today. If you don't know who Blair White is, I'm quite surprised, but I'll tell you anyway. She is a trans woman. She's a content creator, and she is an avid Trump supporter, very vocal about being a Republican. She loves her firearms. She loves her firearms so much. She posts a lot of photos with them and talks about them all the time. And she's also incredibly racist and backs a lot of very racist policies. Thus, obviously, she is a Trump supporter, but she's not going to openly say that she's racist, and she won't admit that, you know, the policies she believes in are racist. But they are, and she is. And she's also obviously in this video because she's horrifically transphobic towards other trans people, especially trans people who don't pass. She refers to trans people who don't pass as like mocking the trans community, which is fucked up, but I'm sure we'll get into that.
It will actually make me cry right now because I just cannot believe that the world is letting this happen, because now they're going to be U-turned onto, oh my God, now I'm carved up. I can't have babies. I can't have sex. And I'm just like, please wake up out there, please.
They say things like, would you rather have a dead kid or a trans kid? As if those are the only two options. They're literally creating a self-fulfilling prophecy of these kids taking their lives. And it's also important that they're getting this from the trans man perspective and the trans woman perspective, because we're not talking talking about things that we don't know about.
That's right.
We've transitioned, we've taken the medications, we've had the surgeries, we've done the thing.
I feel like I wouldn't be doing a disservice not only to myself and my own transition of 30 years, and I would be doing a disservice to the young kids today who need to see this is what it's all about. Like, look at me, I have an amazing life because I transitioned, but I didn't do it in a rush.
I do love this whole narrative of like, all these kids are going to be running around getting life-altering surgery and they're not going to be able to do anything and they're ruining their lives. Like, no child, no child is going and getting top surgery or bottom surgery or anything like that. Like, that's not what's happening. We're talking about giving age-appropriate care and support to people. It's about getting them like therapy. It's about like talking to them and like encouraging them to be who they are and just like allowing kids to express themselves how they feel comfortable and giving them the care that they deserve at like an age-appropriate level. You know what I mean? Like, it's really not that difficult to understand, and I don't know why we keep pushing this idea that like a 12-year-old is gonna go run around and like chop their tits off. Like, they're 12 years old. That's not happening. They're not even fucking developed yet. Calm down. Be so serious. And the self-fulfilling prophecy about kids killing themselves, like it's not a self-fulfilling prophecy. That is based on reality. They are based on real numbers. Like, one of the highest demographics of youth suicides is within trans people. And a lot of that comes down to transphobia and not being able to express themselves because they get bullied or because they're not allowed to, they don't feel safe, etc. Like, this is based off of real numbers. If you aren't offering care and support and you aren't offering them the validation and love that they deserve and they need, it's like, it's not saying they are going to kill themselves, but it is promoting like a suicidal mindset. It is putting kids in a dangerous position. Kids are pretty fucking sensitive and volatile, you know what I mean? Especially like young teenagers. Like, there's a lot going on up there. I'm not trans obviously, but I've been in a situation where like my emotions have been very high and I've been in like a suicidal state before, and it's not a far jump to get there as a teenager. There's a reason that so many teenagers kill themselves or like come close to doing so. It is a very difficult time in your life, and if you are not being given the love and support that you like need, and your needs are not being met, it is very, very easy to get there. And it is happening a lot to queer kids and especially to trans kids. It is not a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's based in reality. And you denying that isn't helping anyone. It's like, support your kid in being trans. You don't have to fucking take them to get surgery when they're 14, but like, you can take them to gender specialists. You can get them on like puberty blockers or whatever that are reversible and that are safe to take. And you can make your kid happy. Like, they're not necessarily going to be like a dead kid if you don't give them that, but they're not going to be themselves and they're going to be miserable and they might feel that way. They don't have to literally be dead in order to feel as though they are and to be a shell of themselves. It's not that hard to just give someone age-appropriate care. It is not that hard to just care about someone and let them be themselves. You've had the transitions that you deserve and that you wanted. And sure, you started that later in life and maybe that worked out well for you. Maybe you were like not struggling as a teenager, but that is a rare thing, you know? Like, a lot of people start transitioning later and are fine, but a lot of people would have benefited a lot more if they were able to do it younger. And there is proof to that. And people talk about it all the time. And it's weird of you to be like, but I was fine. Listen to me. My experience is the only experience that matters. Fuck off. Everyone is different. This worked for you, but it doesn't work for everyone.
Do you like gay people?
Some of them.
Yeah, some of them.
Most of them, no.
Yeah.
Just because I feel like there's a problem with like our community that everyone's like just being on some weirdo collective and just like thinks the same. And I like individuals, hyper individuals. I like people who are just like off kilter, weird, not afraid to like just be normal.
Yeah.
Which is themselves, even if it's weird.
Yeah, especially online in the, community, which is like people getting mad at other people for having opinions that aren't the same ones, and then it's like you're getting kicked out or something. And
yeah, and we used to be edgy, our community.
I want to go back to edge.
It used to be funny. It used to be like artistic. We were like the rejects, and we found beauty in that and humor in that, and like you couldn't tell us nothing. And now you tell us something and we cry. And that's what happens when people tell you you're a victim from a young age, and then you internalize it, and then that's your identity. But like, you could also just internalize being a bad bitch.
See, you're saying this all from where you're sitting. The queer community are still full of creatives and are still like edgy and funny, but a lot of it is more self-deprecating and not about like, you know, ripping other people down like what you do and what you find funny. But you don't want to be in the community enough to see all that because you like sitting at your high table with a bunch of Republicans who want to take your rights away, and they're all looking at the queer community as people who are like, you know, saying that they want to be heard and listened to and don't want their rights taken away. And you're like, you're such babies. It's like you aren't in the community to see all the creativity and humor and things that are happening because you have no interest in that, because you would like to sit at this high horse and make fun of us instead and tell us that we're whiny babies. So it's on you for missing out. And also, humor is subjective. Like, I don't think you're very funny. I don't think Republicans in general are very funny. I don't think conservatives are very funny. I've never found any of your jokes very funny at all. I'm just here like, whereas most queer people I know have a pretty good sense of humor. You know what I mean? Like, you can sit here and say, I'm not funny. I don't actively try to be funny very often. And again, like, we all have different senses of humor and we all gonna find different things funny. But edgy is just like, your idea of edgy is just not very funny anymore. It is dead and it should stay dead. But like, in terms of like self-deprecating humor and jokes about like conservatives and shit, it is pretty funny shit. And there's so much creativity. There's so much art. Still a majority of art that is like good is created by queer people, whether that be music, whether that be like a physical medium, whether it be television, movies, whatever. The best stuff is created by queer people, and I fucking stand by that. And I think that is just factually correct. Objectively, it is a subjective topic, but I am calling objectiveness here because I'm biased and I say so. You can't really have a say when you are sitting in the place that you are and refusing to actually acknowledge queer people because it benefits you not to. So how about you shut the fuck up?
We are all lesbians. Lesbians are women attracted to women. We affirm ourselves because of who we are. Transgender community member right here. I got it right on my sleeve. Also the lesbian flag too.
Well, you are official, aren't you? Wow. That's officially embarrassing. The idea that you can force your way up in here and looking like that, I mean, this is giving your average male who just joined MySpace.com in 2006, I mean, what exactly is lesbian about this? I completely agree with the lesbians. GM. Because this is disgusting. This is also disrespectful to trans people, and it is. Because just joined MySpace in 2006 doesn't equal trans.
Different people are at different points in their lives and their transitions. Different people are going to present in different ways. It doesn't make them any less valid. You do not have to be attracted to them. You do not have to like their aesthetic in order to just validate them as a person and in their identity. Like, maybe she hasn't started medically transitioning. Maybe she doesn't want to medically transition. Maybe she's not out publicly and has to like live between these two different states. You don't know what people are going through. You don't know their lives. You don't know their choices. You do not have to medically transition in order to be valid. You do not have to even like present in an overtly feminine way in order to be a trans woman. It's like, you're not going to look at like a mask, like cis lesbian who looks incredibly masculine and you think is a man on first look and be like, you're not a lesbian. You're a man. Like, you're not gonna fucking do that, are you? Like, you can be a trans man and present very feminine. You can be a trans woman and present very masculine. It's not about aesthetics. It's about who you are as a person. Different people are going to experience themselves in different ways. They're going to present in different ways. Not everyone has to medically transition. Not everyone has to prevent extremely in one direction to be able to identify as that. Like, it's such an annoying idea that in order to be like valid as a trans woman, you have to be hyper feminine, because cis women don't have to be hyper feminine. I don't have to wear a dress and makeup every day to be accepted as a woman. And it's unfair that you expect trans women to have to do that. You know, like, they don't. No one has to do that. You just have to respect and accept people as who they are, and it doesn't matter how they present. And the fact that trans people have different standards to cis people is fucking gross and annoying. And it's fucking annoying that you, Blair, as a trans person, uphold those standards. And now we finally move into a couple things from good old Caitlyn Jenner, another person I've never talked about on this channel. I don't really know much about her at all. Whenever she's talked about, I kind of just go, fucking hell, of course she's saying something. But I don't really know much of what she says or does. So let's find out, shall we?
If Trump does not get in, I think that's the end of the country. I think it's, I hope not. I hope America's better than that. But we need a strong leader. And right now, we do not have any leaders. We don't even have a country. I mean, can you imagine if the UK here opened up their borders and just let anybody in, and 10 million people came across the border in the next couple of years? What would happen to the UK? It'd be over.
What are you talking about? How is the UK related to anything? What are we doing? What are we jumping here? And I mean, the UK borders did used to be open for the entirety of the EU, and it was fine. And then a bunch of racist bigots came in and were like, no, close the borders and don't let any of those pesky Europeans in. And for fucking what? What has it done other than make everything more inconvenient and expensive? Like, it's done fuck all. Now everything is just more expensive. And it makes traveling Europe harder. And it also prevents fucking people who want to come here from coming here when they weren't doing anything in the first place. Like, it's done fuck all. All it's done is fuck shit up. It would be over for the UK if 10 million people came. I don't think 10 million people a year are coming into the UK. We are fucking tiny. We're not big enough for 10 million people to come in every year. The US is massive. It's fucking huge. I don't think 10 million people are coming into the US every year. I just don't believe that's happening. But there is likely space for them. It's a big place and there's a lot of it that is uninhabited. Like, I think you actually do have the space for it. You probably also have the jobs for it. You're not gonna let it happen. You think that it's ruining your country, but it's really probably totally fine. I promise you. And I think that, you, a fucking millionaire, are definitely not going to be affected by it at all. Like, how are you going to be affected by literally anything? You aren't affected by fucking shit that the government does because you have enough money to, like, be above the law. So, like, shut the fuck up.
The old saying, you go woke, you go broke, and you're seeing how advertisers are doing that. But for me, I've always been on the conservative side. When I came out, 2015, and I did Diane Sawyer, but I did it as Bruce, and it was the first interview I had done that I'd ever talked about dealing with gender dysphoria my entire life. And at the end of the interview, she goes, well, we talked about gender dysphoria and the problems with this and that and the trans community. And she goes, oh, and by the way, I was kind of surprised. I hear you're a Republican. And I went, I was kind of surprised by the question, but I go, yeah, we have Democrats, we have Republicans. I've always been on the conservative side. I've been, and she goes, well, that's very surprising. I got more flack for being a Republican than I did for being trans.
Deserved, as you should. It's like so funny, to be honest. I love being like, I got more hate for being a Republican than being trans. They were more surprised about this. They seem to care more, as it should be. I think that is how it should be. I think people should get shat on much more for being a Republican than for being trans. I don't think trans people are doing anything wrong. Trans people are just out here living their lives. Republicans, however, are existing to believing in taking away those rights from trans people. So they should absolutely be getting shat on and yelled at and being like, how the fuck are you a Republican? Why are you a Republican? Stop it. Like, that's deserved. You shouldn't say that to a trans person, though. So that's where I stand on that. Yeah, I think those are all the videos that I have saved. I am running out of juice now. I don't think I have many words left in my brain to say. So I think that I am going to leave this one here. I hope that you did enjoy my first proper video back. And I hope that you enjoy the ones that are to come. So please don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe because I will be back in 3 or 4 days and I would love to see you again. Massive thank you to my Sprout and Above patrons whose names are up on the screen right now. And a huge thank you to my Kiwi Cat patrons. Bobby, Ikazel, Ellie, Chris, Samuel, Knitting Menace, Radsack, Lady Nutbar, Mr. Noodle, Ella, River, and Phenomenally. I love and appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for joining. If anyone else would like to become a patron, go to patreon.com/savvycat. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, The Queer Kiwi, and Twitter, that Queer Kiwi, and also Blue Sky now, apparently, the Queer Kiwi. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Keep fighting. I love you. Mwah.
When you close your eyes.